I don't remember women being this beautiful. Lakota warrior tells the bride, then married her. The Lakota warrior walked into the small frontier town with a quiet confidence that seemed to command attention, without any effort. He was not a man who sought the spotlight, but his presence alone spoke volumes. Years of living in the wide plains and traveling across distant lands had shaped him into someone both strong and calm. His dark hair framed a face that had seen much hardship, yet his eyes carried a softness that only those who looked closely could notice. People in the town were curious about him. He was a stranger, yet there was something familiar in the way he moved, a natural dignity that made others feel both respect and wonder. He came to this town at a time when the air was filled with preparations for a wedding. The streets were dusty, but there was life everywhere. Children ran in circles, laughing, while women hung bright cloths to decorate the houses in small halls. The smell of fresh bread and roasted meat drifted in the air, mixed with the crisp scent of winter approaching. This wedding was not just a celebration. It was a chance for the town to feel hope and joy after months of challenges. The town itself was a mixture of cultures. Some families had lived there for generations, while others were travelers who had stayed for safety or opportunity. It was a place where stories and traditions often crossed paths, sometimes blending, sometimes clashing. Among the many people attending the wedding was a young woman who had lived a life of quiet strength. She had grown up facing difficulties that left little room for frivolity or idle dreams. Her family had lost much over the years, yet she had learned to take responsibility early in life, helping them survive through winters and droughts, through sickness and scarcity. She had a quiet beauty, but it was not the kind that people noticed at first glance. Instead, it was in the way she carried herself, the patience in her voice, and the determination in her eyes. People in town often admired her reliability more than her appearance, though there were whispers that she had a presence that drew attention quietly. When the Lakota warrior first saw her, he was not looking for beauty or attraction. He had traveled far and seen many different places and people. Yet, when their eyes met, something inside him stirred. It was not just her face or her figure. It was the way she moved with ease among others, the way she offered help to someone who needed it, the way she laughed softly at something small and ordinary. He did not speak immediately. Instead, he watched her from a distance, noticing the gentle way she straightened a child's coat and smiled at an elderly neighbor who was struggling with firewood. It was in these small actions that he found a kind of beauty he had never seen before. Without thinking, and almost in a whisper that only someone close could hear, he said, "I don't remember women being this beautiful." His voice was calm and quiet, not meant to impress anyone, but the words carried sincerity. A few people nearby heard him, curious about the stranger's attention. They wondered who he was talking about, and when they looked, they saw the young woman, unaware that her actions had caught the eyes of a man so far from her world. The young woman noticed him too, though she was unsure why. He did not smile like others, nor did he look with judgment or expectation. Instead, he simply observed. There was no rush in his gaze, no false charm, just quiet attention that made her pause for a moment. She felt a strange mixture of curiosity and caution. Who was this man who seemed to see something others overlooked? She had grown used to being judged by appearance, but his eyes told her he saw her differently, in a way that recognized her efforts and her heart rather than surface qualities. As the day went on, the town buzzed with activity. The wedding preparations moved forward with laughter, small quarrels, and moments of shared excitement. Families worked together to prepare food, set up tables, and hang decorations. Music played softly in the background, a mix of local folk songs and tunes that had traveled from distant places. The Lakota warrior did not rush. He moved calmly among the people, offering help when needed. He lifted heavy bags of flour for the bakers, fixed a broken chair quietly, and carried water for the elderly without asking for thanks. People began to notice not just his strength, but the care he showed in each action. It was not flashy work. It was steady, dependable, and respectful. Little by little, curiosity about him grew. Who was this man who could do so much and yet speak so little? The young woman found herself crossing paths with him more than once. At first, it was accidental. She passed by him while carrying a basket of fruit, and he stepped aside, offering a gentle nod of acknowledgement. She could feel his presence, calm but firm, and there was a silent understanding in those small gestures. Over time, they began to exchange words. It was never rushed or playful in the way young people often flirted. Instead, they spoke about ordinary matters: how best to prepare food for a large group, which roads were safer for travelers, how to fix a fence damaged by wind. But in these conversations, a connection quietly formed. The warrior shared stories of his travels, not to boast, but to explain lessons he had learned about patience, respect, and observing the world. She shared memories of her own childhood, of challenges faced and lessons learned, of the hope she carried for her family and her community. Both spoke carefully, as if measuring each word, yet each story revealed the depth of their characters. Rumors began to swirl around the town. Some people admired the growing connection between the stranger and the young woman. They whispered about how rare it was to see someone so genuine, someone whose intentions were clear and steady. Others wondered whether the differences in their backgrounds could ever allow a true bond to form. The Lakota warrior had his own world, his own responsibilities, and this town was temporary, a stop in a longer journey. The young woman, grounded in her home and family, wondered whether trust could grow so quickly, whether admiration might fade with time. These uncertainties added tension to the quiet moments they shared. Every glance, every small act of kindness carried unspoken questions and possibilities. One evening, as the sun began to set, the warrior found himself helping the young woman gather firewood. The sky was painted in warm oranges and soft purples, and the cool breeze carried the scent of winter. They worked together silently at first, stacking wood neatly and exchanging occasional words about the best way to carry larger pieces. Then, without pretense, the warrior asked her about her family, about what she hoped for the future, about the dreams she had never shared with anyone before. She hesitated at first, then opened up slowly, telling him about the years of hard work, the moments when she had felt unseen, and the quiet hope she held for a life of peace and respect. He listened attentively, never interrupting, never judging, only offering small affirmations that he understood. She realized she had never met someone who truly listened, who valued her words as much as the work she did each day. That night, as the town prepared for the wedding festivities, the young woman reflected on the day. She thought of the Lakota warrior's words from earlier, the simple remark about beauty that had felt so different from the compliments she had received before. They had not been empty or shallow. Instead, they had been rooted in observation and respect. She felt a stirring of curiosity and wonder, a desire to know more about this man who had seen something in her that others had missed. And the warrior, as he watched the town settle for the evening, felt something he had not expected. In a world filled with people moving for their own reasons, he had noticed someone whose presence made him feel calm, someone whose strength and quiet grace seemed to match the lessons he had learned from years of living with his people. It was not a sudden attraction. It was a recognition, a moment of clarity that something important had begun. The wedding the following day would be lively and full of celebration, but the connection between them continued to grow in small, quiet moments, helping each other carry supplies, sharing stories while preparing food, watching the sun rise over the plains and fall again. They were learning to see each other not as strangers, but as people who had endured hardships, who had learned patience and respect, and who were beginning to understand the value of shared attention and understanding. By the end of part 1, the foundation of their relationship had been laid, not through grand gestures or sudden romance, but through observation, respect, shared effort, and quiet curiosity. The warrior's words about beauty had not been superficial. They reflected the beginning of a recognition that went far deeper. The young woman, too, began to feel that maybe someone could see her for who she truly was, not just what others expected her to be. And in that quiet frontier town, amid preparations for celebration, the story of two people from different worlds quietly began to unfold, setting the stage for the days ahead, where their connection would grow through understanding, challenges, and shared life experiences. The morning after the first day of wedding preparations, the town was filled with quiet energy. People moved quickly through the streets, carrying baskets, folding cloths, and preparing food. Children ran along the alleys, their laughter echoing between the wooden buildings, while elders gave instructions in calm, steady voices. The air smelled of fresh bread baking, roasted meat, and the clean earth after a light rain the night before. The Lakota warrior rose early, as he always did, moving silently but efficiently. He preferred the quiet hours before the town fully awakened. It gave him time to observe, to prepare, and to plan his actions carefully. Today, however, he noticed that his thoughts kept returning to the young woman he had met yesterday. She, too, woke early. She carried a basket of eggs to the kitchen and arranged them carefully, mindful not to let any crack. Her movements were efficient, precise, shaped by years of responsibility and hard work. She had learned long ago that preparation was key in life, that small mistakes could become large problems if ignored. As she worked, she thought of the Lakota warrior. His presence in town was unusual, yet calming. She found herself wondering what it must have been like to travel so far, to see so many places, and to live with the discipline that he clearly had. There was a quiet curiosity growing inside her, one that she did not yet fully understand. When they crossed paths later that morning, it was natural and unforced. He offered to carry a large basket of flour, and she nodded with quiet thanks. They exchanged a few words about the weather and the state of the road that led into town. These conversations were simple, almost ordinary, yet each word built understanding. They did not need to speak about attraction or romance. The connection was formed through shared effort and mutual respect. As the day went on, the warrior continued to help where he was needed. He lifted heavy crates of supplies, repaired a broken wheel on a cart, and helped an elderly man carry firewood. People began to notice that his actions were not done for praise or attention. He worked quietly, observing others and acting only when he saw something that required help. The young woman watched him from a distance, noticing not only his strength but the care he put into every action. When he helped the children gather small pieces of wood for a fire, he made sure each child was safe and comfortable. When he spoke to the elders, he listened patiently and followed instructions without complaint. By midday, the wedding hall was filled with activity. Long tables had been set, chairs placed in neat rows, and decorations hung in careful patterns. The young woman and the warrior found themselves working side by side, arranging flowers and straightening linens. They spoke in short sentences at first, but gradually their conversation deepened. He asked her about her family, her childhood, and the work she did to support them. She answered with honesty, sharing stories of challenges and small victories, of the lessons she had learned about patience and resilience. In return, he spoke about his travels, about the people he had met and the lessons he had learned from them. His stories were not grand or boastful, but filled with insight, showing a thoughtful mind shaped by experience. The townspeople began to whisper. Some admired the connection forming between the two, noting the careful respect in their words and gestures. Others were skeptical, questioning whether a man from another world, from another culture, could truly find common ground with someone so rooted in the town. Despite the whispers, neither the young woman nor the warrior allowed themselves to be distracted. Their focus was on the work, on the small acts of cooperation, and on the quiet understanding growing between them. By late afternoon, a small storm moved in from the plains. The sky darkened, and wind began to stir. People hurried to secure decorations and move supplies inside. The warrior immediately stepped in to help, holding down a tent as it threatened to blow away, while the young woman carried fragile flowers to safety. Working together through the wind and rain, they began to feel a sense of trust growing between them. They did not speak much, but in every glance and every shared action, there was understanding. They realized that even in chaos, they could rely on each other. When the storm passed, the town was left in a mess, but spirits remained high. The warrior suggested organizing a cleanup effort, and the young woman agreed. Together, they directed the townspeople in repairing broken tables, moving wet linens to dry spaces, and rearranging decorations that had fallen. Their teamwork impressed everyone. It was not only the efficiency but the calm leadership they displayed that drew attention. The young woman noticed that people were starting to look at her differently, perhaps seeing her ability to manage challenges as part of her character. The warrior, too, noticed how she handled herself in pressure, her quiet confidence, and steady determination. During a brief pause in the work, they sat together under a tree near the river. The warrior offered her a small piece of bread he had saved, and she accepted it with a nod. For a few moments they watched the river flow, speaking softly about simple things. The sound of the water, the patterns of clouds in the sky, the way the wind moved the trees. It was not the grand gestures of romance, but a quiet companionship that grew from shared effort and mutual understanding. As evening approached, the town gathered around a small fire for warmth and conversation. The young woman brought food to share, and the warrior helped distribute it among the children and elders. Sitting beside each other, they continued their conversation, now touching on hopes for the future, the value of family and community, and the small joys that life offered despite hardships. They spoke honestly, without pretense or exaggeration. Each word, each story, revealed the depth of their character and the ways their experiences had shaped them. Over the next few days, their bond continued to grow. They found moments to help each other in small tasks, to share quiet conversations while others were busy, and to support one another through minor challenges. Whether carrying water, arranging tables, or calming anxious children, they discovered a sense of companionship that went beyond words. The warrior admired not only her appearance, but the strength of her spirit, her patience, and her kindness. She in turn admired his calm presence, his willingness to help without seeking reward, and his quiet understanding of the world. Rumors in the town began to shift. People were no longer simply curious. They began to respect the growing connection between the two. They observed the warrior's actions and the young woman's responses, noting that it was not a fleeting interest, but a steady and sincere bond. Some elders whispered that their partnership was rare, that such understanding and respect between people of different backgrounds was a lesson for all to see. The young woman overheard these whispers and felt a mixture of pride and caution. She was unsure how to navigate this new attention, but she appreciated the sense of trust developing between her and the warrior. One afternoon, while walking along the riverbank to gather wildflowers for decoration, the warrior and the young woman shared a story about their childhoods. He spoke of wide plains, the lessons of patience and observation, and the people he had met who had taught him resilience. She shared memories of helping her family through difficult seasons, the responsibilities she had carried, and the small victories that gave her hope. Listening to each other, they realized how much their lives, though different in circumstance, had shaped them in similar ways, through perseverance, understanding, and quiet courage. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with warm colors, they paused to rest. The warrior looked at the young woman with a thoughtful expression. "You carry yourself with strength," he said quietly. "And yet there is a gentleness that makes you different from anyone I have met." She smiled softly, not out of vanity, but from understanding that he saw something true about her, something beyond appearances. That evening, as the town settled down for the night, both reflected on the days they had spent together. It was not about fleeting attraction or superficial admiration. It was about noticing, respecting, and understanding each other. The warrior felt a sense of peace he had not felt in a long time, and the young woman felt seen in a way that was rare and comforting. Their relationship, though still new, was rooted in sincerity and shared values, making it stronger than any sudden connection could have been. By the end of Part 2, the foundation for a deeper bond had been laid. The Lakota warrior and the young woman were no longer strangers. They were companions in effort, witnesses to each other's resilience, and observers of each other's character. Through shared work, quiet conversation, and mutual respect, they began to understand the beginnings of trust and connection. While the wedding in the town was still the central event, the true story unfolding was the relationship developing between them. Built not on appearances alone, but on recognition, understanding, and the small, meaningful acts that create lasting bonds. The days after the wedding preparations became increasingly busy, but the Lakota warrior and the young woman found ways to spend time together, even amidst the chaos. Each morning the town came alive with activity. Merchants arranged their goods, children ran errands or played by the river, and families worked together to ensure everything for the wedding was ready. Despite the busyness, the warrior moved through the town with his usual calm demeanor. He offered help where it was needed, whether lifting heavy crates or assisting with repairs. Yet he always made time to speak with the young woman, even if only for a few quiet moments. She too began to notice the rhythm of their companionship. It was not the dramatic kind of relationship that others spoke about in stories. Instead, it was built on trust, respect, and the steady sharing of responsibilities. She admired how he approached tasks with care, never rushing, never assuming, always observing and learning before acting. Watching him, she realized that strength did not always need to be loud or forceful. It could be quiet, thoughtful, and dependable. One afternoon, a small challenge arose. A section of the town's wooden fence had been damaged in the recent storm. Livestock were beginning to wander too close to the town center, and the elders were concerned. Without hesitation, the warrior offered to repair the fence. The young woman immediately joined him, carrying tools and nails. Together they worked side by side. He held heavy beams in place while she measured and drilled, passing materials with precision. They did not speak unnecessarily. Their actions were synchronized in a quiet understanding that only came from shared effort. As they worked, the young woman told him about her experiences growing up with limited resources. She explained how her family had survived harsh winters and dry summers, how every day was an opportunity to learn and adapt. He listened carefully, occasionally asking questions, not out of curiosity for gossip, but to understand her better, to see the world through her perspective. In turn, he shared stories of his travels across the plains, speaking of the lessons taught by elders, of observing nature, and of the importance of patience and humility. These conversations, though calm and understated, were forming a deep connection that neither could ignore. While repairing the fence, the young woman noticed how he encouraged others. When a child approached, frightened of the falling timber, he knelt down to explain what was happening, speaking in gentle tones and reassuring gestures. She realized that his strength was paired with kindness, that he valued the well-being of others above his own speed or ease. This impression stayed with her, and she found herself thinking about him even when they were apart. The following day, the town faced another challenge. Supplies for the wedding banquet had been delayed, and there was concern about whether there would be enough food for all the guests. The warrior immediately offered to help coordinate deliveries, moving crates and barrels with care. The young woman joined him, organizing and checking lists to ensure nothing was missed. The pair worked tirelessly, their cooperation earning respect from the townspeople. Many noted how naturally they complemented each other. Neither overshadowed the other, yet together they accomplished far more than either could have alone. During a brief pause, the young woman sat with the warrior under a tree near the town square. The sun was warm, but the shade offered relief from the midday heat. She watched him carefully, noticing the way he rested, the subtle gestures that revealed thoughtfulness and attentiveness. She had seen men before, strong and capable, but few who balanced strength with care so effortlessly. She realized that she admired not only his physical abilities, but the way he approached life, with patience, calm, and respect for everyone around him. He noticed her attention and smiled lightly. "You have a careful eye," he said. "You notice things that others often miss." She laughed softly, not from vanity, but from understanding. It was true. She had always observed before acting, learned from her environment, and helped where she could. He seemed to recognize her skill and experience, valuing them without judgment. In that moment, the young woman felt seen, truly seen, in a way that was rare and comforting. Over the next few days, their bond deepened further. They shared more stories, both lighthearted and serious, about their past experiences. The warrior spoke of the discipline required to live on the plains, of surviving harsh conditions, and of learning to trust only those who had earned it. She spoke of her family's struggles, of moments of joy that had been fleeting, and of the quiet satisfaction in helping others. Each exchange brought them closer, creating a sense of understanding and shared values that went beyond superficial attraction. One evening, the town hosted a small rehearsal for the wedding ceremony. People practiced songs and dances, arranged seating, and checked decorations. The warrior and the young woman worked together, guiding children in their roles and ensuring the elders were comfortable. While others rushed and argued in minor disagreements, the pair remained calm, offering gentle solutions and encouragement. Their teamwork became a quiet example for the community, showing that cooperation and respect could achieve far more than impatience or pride. As the night grew darker, the young woman and the warrior walked along the riverbank, away from the bustle of the town. The moonlight reflected softly on the water, creating a peaceful scene. They spoke quietly about hopes and fears, dreams for the future, and the lessons life had taught them. He told her that he had rarely met anyone who carried responsibility with such grace, who balanced strength with kindness so naturally. She, in turn, confessed that she had never met someone who observed and understood her so fully, without expectation or judgment. During this walk, they encountered a family whose horse had wandered close to the river. The warrior quickly guided the animal back to safety while the young woman helped calm the children. Their combined effort was smooth and efficient, demonstrating not only practical skill but an intuitive understanding of each other's abilities. Once the family was safe, they resumed walking, reflecting on how much they had accomplished together, and how naturally they had come to rely on each other. The next day brought more small challenges, as is often the case in any town preparing for a major celebration. Supplies had to be sorted, decorations adjusted, and small conflicts resolved. The warrior and the young woman continued to work together, coordinating tasks and assisting others. Their collaboration was seamless. They anticipated each other's needs and responded with quiet efficiency. Townspeople continued to notice, many impressed by the subtle yet powerful partnership forming between them. Amid all this, there were moments of quiet intimacy. Sharing meals while sitting side by side, exchanging simple smiles during long hours of work, and offering brief words of encouragement. These moments, though small, created a sense of connection and trust that grew steadily unnoticed by many, but felt deeply by both of them. They began to understand that attraction was not only about appearances, but about character, respect, and shared experience. By the end of Part 3, the warrior and the young woman had established a bond grounded in trust, cooperation, and genuine understanding. The small challenges of the town and wedding preparations had given them the chance to see each other's character in action. The young woman admired his calm strength, patience, and kindness, while he admired her resilience, intelligence, and gentle authority. Their connection was no longer tentative. It had grown into a quiet, steady understanding that hinted at something deeper. The stage was now set for greater challenges and decisions that would test their feelings. While the wedding remained the center of the town's attention, the true story was the partnership forming between two people from very different worlds, united by respect, shared effort, and the recognition of true character. Every action, conversation, and quiet moment had laid the foundation for a relationship that could grow into something lasting and meaningful, built not on fleeting attraction, but on shared values and understanding. The days leading up to the wedding were filled with excitement and tension in the small town. Every corner seemed busy with people carrying baskets, hanging decorations, preparing food, and rehearsing songs. There was an energy in the air, a mixture of joy, nerves, and anticipation. Among all this, the Lakota warrior and the young woman continued to spend time together, quietly supporting each other through the work and observing how much their connection had grown. One morning, news arrived that tested both of them. A distant relative of the warrior sent a message asking him to return to his homeland, temporarily. It was a request tied to family responsibilities and obligations that he could not ignore. He did not speak of it immediately, unsure how to tell the young woman or whether he even wanted to leave. He felt a strange conflict between duty and the attachment that had formed in the town. The young woman noticed that he seemed distant that day. He worked quietly helping others, but his usual calm presence carried a hint of tension. She approached him carefully while they arranged chairs in the wedding hall. "Is everything all right?" she asked softly. He looked up, meeting her eyes, and for a moment he said nothing. Then, with honesty, he explained the message he had received and what it might mean. She listened carefully, her heart tightening. She understood the importance of family and duty, but she also recognized the growing connection between them. Her mind raced with questions. Would he leave? Would this part of their lives end before it even began? She did not speak immediately, letting him finish explaining. Her silence was not coldness, it was thoughtfulness. She needed to process the news to understand what it meant for them. Over the next few days, the warrior wrestled with his decision. He wanted to honor his family's request, yet the thought of leaving the town, and the young woman, felt heavier than anything he had carried in his travels. Each time he spoke to her, he felt the weight of unspoken emotions pressing on him. He realized that this was more than admiration or companionship. He had come to care deeply for her, valuing her presence in a way he had not expected. The young woman, meanwhile, focused on her responsibilities in the town. She organized tasks, helped neighbors, and ensured that wedding preparations continued smoothly. Yet in quiet moments, her thoughts returned to the warrior. She remembered how he had observed and understood her, how he had respected her strength and efforts, and how his calm presence had brought a sense of peace she had not known before. She realized that she too valued his companionship, and the possibility of his departure left her with an uneasy sadness. One afternoon, a sudden challenge struck the town. A portion of the riverbank had weakened after recent rains, threatening crops and small pathways. People were worried about damage and safety. The warrior immediately stepped forward to help assess the situation, and the young woman joined him without hesitation. Together, they guided the townspeople, offering instructions and lending physical support. While others panicked or argued over minor details, they worked with focus and calm, leading by example. During this effort, the warrior and the young woman shared small moments of quiet conversation. He spoke of the value of family and responsibility, explaining why he could not ignore the request to return. She shared her understanding, acknowledging that sometimes duty came before personal desire, yet she could not hide the hope that he might find a way to stay. They did not argue. Instead, they communicated through honesty and shared understanding. This reinforced their bond as they realized that their connection was based not only on admiration, but also on respect for each other's values and decisions. The following evening, the town gathered for a brief celebration to honor the approaching wedding. Lanterns were hung, small fires were lit for warmth, and music filled the air. The warrior and the young woman worked together, coordinating the tasks to ensure that everything ran smoothly. Amid the activity, they found a quiet spot under a tree to sit and talk. The moonlight reflected softly on the grass, and for a moment the chaos of the town faded away. He spoke first. "I do not know how long I will be needed elsewhere," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "But I want you to understand that these days with you have been meaningful. You have taught me patience and care in ways I did not expect." She looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes. She reached out and lightly touched his hand, offering comfort without words. It was a gesture of trust and understanding, showing that she valued their connection and wanted him to know it was reciprocated. They spent the night in calm reflection, sharing memories of the days they had worked together, laughed together, and faced challenges together. Each story reminded them of the quiet bond they had formed. They realized that their relationship was not built on superficial attraction but on shared experiences, mutual respect, and the recognition of each other's character. The next morning, the warrior prepared to make a difficult choice. He visited an elder in town, someone he trusted for guidance. The elder reminded him that strength was not only in fulfilling duty but also in choosing connections that bring meaning and purpose. They spoke at length about balance, about the importance of honoring responsibilities while also recognizing the value of personal relationships. The conversation helped him clarify his feelings and priorities. When he returned to the young woman, he found her tending to flowers near the town square. She looked up at him and smiled softly, her expression reflecting calm and curiosity. He took a deep breath and spoke from his heart. "I realize that I cannot simply walk away," he said. "These days with you have shown me what it means to truly see someone, to respect them, and to care for them. I do not want to lose that." Her eyes softened and she nodded, understanding the depth of his words. She had felt the same way but had been waiting for him to express his feelings honestly. They did not rush to speak of marriage or vows. Instead, they acknowledged the value of the connection they had formed, knowing that it had already changed both of their lives. As the day continued, they worked side by side planning the final details for the wedding. Their cooperation was seamless, built on trust and understanding. Each gesture, each word, reflected the respect and admiration they had for each other. The townspeople noticed their growing closeness, recognizing that their relationship was strong and sincere. Later that evening, they shared another quiet walk along the riverbank. The water reflected the colors of the sunset, creating a serene atmosphere. They spoke about hopes for the future, the lessons they had learned, and the value of facing challenges together. The warrior admitted that he had traveled far and seen many things, but meeting her had taught him lessons he could not have learned alone. The young woman admitted that she had always valued responsibility and strength, but his presence had shown her the importance of patience, calm, and understanding in relationships. Through these conversations, they realized that they were ready for the next step in their journey together. Their connection was no longer tentative or uncertain. It had grown into a deep bond based on shared experiences, mutual respect, and genuine care. They understood that the challenges they faced were part of life, and that facing them together made their relationship stronger. The next few days were spent preparing for the wedding itself. The town was filled with excitement and anticipation. Decorations were hung, meals were prepared, and guests began arriving from nearby areas. Throughout all this, the warrior and the young woman remained focused on each other and on ensuring that the event went smoothly. Their teamwork and calm presence inspired those around them, demonstrating the strength of partnership and mutual respect. Finally, the day before the wedding, the warrior and the young woman found a quiet moment together. They sat by the river reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. They spoke of challenges faced, lessons learned, and the bond that had grown between them. The warrior looked at her and said softly, "I have seen beauty in many places, but what I see in you is more than appearance. It is strength, kindness, and courage. That is what makes you extraordinary." She smiled, feeling the sincerity in his words. "And I have seen the same in you," she replied. "Not just strength, but patience, respect, and understanding. That is what has drawn me to you." In that quiet moment, they both understood that the journey ahead would not always be easy. Life would bring challenges, responsibilities, and difficult decisions. But they also understood that together they could face anything. Their relationship was no longer about chance encounters or fleeting admiration. It was about a shared life built on respect, trust, and genuine care. By the end of Part 4, the stage was set for the final step of their journey, the wedding and the beginning of their life together. The Lakota warrior and the young woman had faced challenges, learned from each other, and built a connection that was strong, sincere, and lasting. Their bond was rooted in shared experience, mutual respect, and the quiet understanding that true relationships are formed not through grand gestures but through daily acts of care, cooperation, and honesty. The morning of the wedding arrived with a quiet anticipation. The town was alive with movement, but beneath the bustle there was a sense of calm purpose. Families worked together, hanging decorations, preparing food, and arranging tables for the celebration. Children ran around, laughing and playing, while elders moved carefully, ensuring that everything was in order. The Lakota warrior and the young woman rose early, their own preparations carried out in quiet cooperation. There was no hurry in their movements. Every action was deliberate, respectful, and filled with the understanding that today was more than just a ceremony. It was the beginning of a shared life. They worked together side by side, carrying baskets, adjusting decorations, and coordinating with townspeople. Their gestures were subtle but synchronized, showing the depth of their bond. It was clear to anyone watching that their connection had grown beyond simple admiration. They were companions, partners, and friends who understood each other in ways that words alone could not capture. When a piece of cloth slipped from a table, the warrior caught it before it fell, and the young woman smiled softly at his attentiveness. In that small moment, they both felt the comfort of shared understanding. As the sun rose higher, the guests began to arrive. People came from nearby towns, neighbors who had known the young woman all her life, and travelers who had met the warrior during his journey. There was a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and respect in the air. Many had watched the two grow closer over the past weeks, and now they were eager to witness the union that seemed both natural and sincere. The townspeople noticed the calm strength in the warrior and the quiet dignity in the young woman, and they could see that their bond was built on respect, trust, and shared experience rather than fleeting attraction. The ceremony itself was simple, yet meaningful. A small space near the riverbank had been prepared. with natural decorations that reflected both the town's traditions and the warriors' culture. Soft music filled the air, blending local melodies with songs carried from distant lands. Guests were seated, and the atmosphere was peaceful, yet charged with quiet emotion. The young woman stood, radiant not from adornment, but from the confidence, strength, and kindness she had carried all her life. The warrior stood beside her, calm, steady, and attentive, aware of the significance of this moment and the journey that had brought them here. As the officiant spoke, they exchanged vows in simple, honest words. There were no elaborate promises or dramatic declarations. Instead, each vow reflected their understanding of each other and their commitment to mutual respect. The warrior promised to support and protect, to respect her character and decisions, and to share in the responsibilities of life together. She promised to support him, to value his wisdom and experience, and to face life's challenges with him as a partner and equal.
The simplicity and sincerity of their vows carried a depth that touched everyone present.
During the ceremony, small moments of connection stood out. The warrior gently held the young woman's hand as they exchanged vows, his gaze steady and calm. She looked at him with quiet affection, knowing that their connection had grown from shared effort, mutual respect, and understanding. There was no need for grand gestures. Their presence together was enough to convey the depth of their feelings. Guests noted the authenticity in their expressions and actions, understanding that this was not a fleeting romance, but a relationship built on trust and care. After the ceremony, the celebration continued with laughter, music, and shared meals. People danced, children played, and neighbors congratulated the couple. The warrior and the young woman moved through the crowd together, offering thanks and receiving smiles and well wishes. Despite the festivities, there were quiet moments for the two of them, sitting together by the river, watching the water flow and reflecting on the journey that had led them here. They spoke softly, sharing hopes for the future, and acknowledging the lessons they had learned from each other. Over the next few hours, they engaged in small acts that revealed the strength of their partnership. The warrior helped an elderly guest adjust a chair, while the young woman offered food to a child who had wandered near the riverbank. Each gesture, though small, reflected their shared values: care, attentiveness, and respect for those around them. Guests noticed how naturally they worked together, understanding each other's needs without words, and they felt inspired by the authenticity of the couple's connection. As the sun began to set, casting warm colors over the town and river, the couple found a quiet place to rest. Sitting side by side, they reflected on the journey that had brought them together. The warrior spoke of the lessons he had learned during his travels, and how meeting her had changed his perspective on strength, beauty, and companionship. She spoke of the challenges she had faced growing up, and how his presence had shown her the importance of patience, understanding, and shared responsibility. Each word reinforced the bond between them, showing that their connection was grounded in experience and mutual respect rather than mere attraction. The evening brought a calm stillness to the town. Guests had begun to leave, and the lanterns flickered softly along the streets. The warrior and the young woman walked together through the quiet town, noticing the familiar details of homes, trees, and the riverbank. Each step was a reminder of the small acts that had built their relationship, working together, supporting one another, and sharing in challenges and triumphs. They understood that the journey ahead would not always be easy, but they felt ready to face it together, strengthened by the trust and respect they had cultivated. Later, they sat beneath a tree by the river, watching the stars appear one by one. The warrior looked at the young woman and said softly, "I have seen many places, met many people, and faced many challenges. But meeting you has taught me lessons I could not have learned elsewhere. You have shown me strength, kindness, and courage in ways that have changed me." She smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "And you have shown me patience, respect, and understanding. I feel seen and valued in a way I never thought possible." They spoke of the future, imagining the life they would build together. They discussed the importance of community, family, and shared responsibilities. They made plans for small tasks and routines, understanding that the strength of a relationship lies in daily acts of care, cooperation, and support. Even in simple moments, they found meaning and connection, reinforcing the foundation of their life together. The night ended with a quiet walk along the riverbank. The water reflected the moonlight, creating a peaceful scene. They held hands, feeling the warmth and comfort of being together. There was no need for grand declarations. Their presence together spoke volumes. Each understood that their relationship was rooted in authenticity, built on mutual respect, and strengthened by the challenges they had faced. By the next morning, the town had returned to its usual rhythm. Life continued, but the presence of the warrior and the young woman together had created a sense of stability and calm. Their connection inspired others, showing that relationships built on respect, shared effort, and understanding could withstand challenges and flourish. They moved through their days with a quiet confidence, aware that they were partners in life, ready to face whatever came next together. In the weeks that followed, the warrior and the young woman began their shared life. They continued to honor their responsibilities to family and community, but now they did so as a team. They worked together, supported each other, and faced challenges side by side. The bond that had formed during the wedding preparations and celebrations became the foundation of a strong, lasting partnership. Their life was not perfect, but it was real. There were difficulties, small disagreements, and moments of uncertainty. Yet, through every challenge, they relied on the trust, respect, and understanding that had grown between them. Each day offered opportunities to learn from one another, to support one another, and to strengthen the connection that had begun weeks before in a small town preparing for a wedding. The story concluded not with grand gestures, but with a sense of calm fulfillment. The Lakota warrior and the young woman had discovered that true beauty lies not in appearances, but in character, patience, kindness, and shared experience. Their relationship had grown slowly, built on respect and mutual understanding, and now it stood strong, ready to face the future together. As they stood together by the river watching the sun rise and illuminate the town, they felt a quiet joy. It was the joy of knowing they had found in each other not only companionship, but a true partnership. And in that moment they understood that life's greatest treasures are not always the loudest or most obvious, but the quiet connections that endure, built through honesty, care, and shared experience.